The issue of budget padding or insertion or additions appears to be here to stay in our country, as President Muhammadu Buhari signed the 2023 Appropriation Bill into law. He expressed reservations over changes made by lawmakers. President Buhari said they appropriated 770.7.2 billion naira for new projects they introduced and increased the provisions made by ministries, departments, and agencies, MDAs, by 58.55 billion naira. Tolu, what's happening? Number one, let me first of all ask you about implementation of this budget. One thing that President Buhari did, this administration, they've been able to reverse, is that they've been able to change our financial year to January to December. True. That come what December, October, the president is going to lay the budgets in the National Assembly, a joint session, but by December it's going to be passed, and by January they're going to sign it and the thing will start working. Now this is January, by hook or by crook, President Buhari has signed. Put pen to paper. Despite the fact that I was told that there are a lot of discrepancies. Still a lot of reservations. Yes, a lot of observation. Now, in the last 2-3 years that cycle has changed to January to December, how many percent have we recorded in terms of implementation, or how have we improved in terms of budget implementation?
It's a very good question. I think that everyone has congratulated President Buhari for this feat, because that budgeting cycle is something that's very important. It's timely. It helps contractors plan. It helps business people plan. It also helps the government implement policies and move on as planned. But I think our performance has been over in between 70-75%, at times 80%. That's what we've been doing, because budget is a spending plan. It's just a budget, just like the way it sounds. Most times you don't actualize 100% of it, particularly for a country like Nigeria that is struggling to even fund this budget, to finance the budget. So the word implementation that you said is, how do we implement a budget that we don't even have enough money to finance? So that is the first challenge a government has to face, how to raise revenue. And they've been going all around promoting non-oil, introducing the Finance Act and all of that. But we need to be very careful, because if we continue to slam taxes on people, on companies, on organizations, and it becomes so heavy on them, then you undermine investors. And when investors don't come into your country, we'll face what we face now with the forex, scarcity, buying at 800 naira. You know what it is in that market. So a lot needs to be done about revenue aspect of this budget. Government needs to open up, take advantage of places that they have not looked at, block loopholes, and make sure that projects are properly implemented and monitored. Monitoring and evaluation is one problem we've also had. So if that can follow our budgetary process, we monitor our expenses, we know how much is paid to a particular person to do a particular project, then I think that will be a good way to go. We need to avoid variations in projects. I could cite, for example, Governor Wike will always say it. He will tell his contractors, I don't want variation. It makes real sense, because what he's trying to tell you is, this project is, for example, is 1 billion naira. Okay, I'm going to give you 80% of these funds. This project must be delivered in 6 months. You won't come back to me in 3 months or 4 months and say, oh, inflation, dollar rate. No. Work with whatever you. So I think we need to look at all those. That's why you see him a lot of projects in his state and going all around. So we need to work on our monitoring and evaluation process on our budget. If we continue to think it's business as usual, we cannot get it right at this time at all. We can't.
Looking at the executive, we always complain about these insertions, and I think they've been to court on this. I don't know, maybe the courts, maybe they've adjudicated on this particular position at the highest level, that's the Supreme Court. But we know that it's part of the job of these lawmakers to actually insert these insertions, and they are always at crossroads with the executives.
Well, as a matter of fact, if not because of it being in line of duty, I've made it a point never to listen to budget speech again. Because you hear so much billion, trillion, and all that. And at the end of the budget cycle, you ask yourself, where is this money?
What did we achieve?
What has it been done? The president said that 770 billion has been added to what he proposed, and for the MDAs, 58.55 billion. And he went ahead and signed this same budget. The question is, who is going to monitor the implementation and these variations or these discrepancies? The one that was in last year's own, what did we hear about it? Did we hear whether it was resolved? Where did the money go to? Or what was it? But rather than that, we will hear supplementary budget. I will not be surprised if, well, he doesn't have the time again anyway, but you can never put anything beyond it. But when the next government comes in May, there will also be another supplementary budget. Whether it is APC or PDP or LP that comes in, there will be another supplementary budget. And then you ask yourself, all these billion and trillion that they have always been, that they are talking about, where is it? You look around you, you can't find it. All the roads are bad. The issue of light is getting worse. The issue of transport, you can't find aviation fuel, you can't find fuel. In fact, the issue of NNPC and fuel now has even tapered into insignificance. Everybody, if you go on social media now, some people are buying 350, some are buying 400 and all that. And then what happened? In this budget now, was there anything budgeted for NNPC or the national the refineries?
Men that are involved in this process, from the House of Representatives to the Senate, from the budget office, I can
all these are just photo ops. All these are photo ops. It doesn't make.
Olamileko Solomon, the chairman House Committee, and James Abiodun Faleke, the House Committee chairman of Finance, the Senate President, the
who is who in the legislature and executive.
At the end of the day, when we see these discrepancies and insertion, a lot of people will call it padding, but the lawmakers will say, we've gone through the books of these MDAs and we call the leaders of the MDAs and we ask questions and they are able to, they felt that they've done justice. Why do you think the president is complaining on these insertions?
Well, I think it's also a two-way thing, because many times if we're in the news, our job is news, our business is news, reading and all of that, and judgment. So we see that many times the House of Assembly and House of Representatives, they call on the heads or leadership of these countries, and many of them don't even want to come. Until maybe they like, oh, we're going to get you arrested when there's a, when there's someone or zero budget allocation
or usually best warrant.
So at times there's a little bit of rush in some of these things, because at the end of the day, when they've waited and waited, they just come along, maybe they send a representative, some figures are just put together, and at the end of the day they are approved. But I think more needs to be done with regards to that. Maybe they should be given time, stipulated time. If you don't come to defend your budget at this particular time, then you know that you won't get it, so that you don't come at a time where we now start having these discrepancies with regards to figures. It doesn't speak well of a country, a country of more than 200 million people, and we are talking about our budget, and today we have this figure, tomorrow the figure is tweaked, is changed, where you're not even you're supposed to service this with about 6.5 trillion naira for debt servicing alone in this document. Almost 100% of our revenue that we generate as a country is what we use to service debt. So what does that mean? So some will even tell you that the document is almost dead on arrival, but I wouldn't say that, because some of the assumptions still look very good. Price of crude, production quota, exchange rate, some of them are a little bit, we can work around that, hopefully, with hope. And if global issues work positively for us, Russia and Ukraine crisis, don't forget, is still on. China is talking about COVID-19 now, the very high rate. So all of this have impact one way or the other on Nigeria's economy. So I think they need to have, go through the right processing. Let the MDAs let them know that you need to give appropriate figures to the House of the National Assembly members and of course the House of Rep members, and they work on this very quickly and send to the presidency, and we stop having this kind of issues.
Ultimately, how does this affect the economic situation in the country?
Well,
you see budgets being passed year in, year out, and the budget of hope, budget of sustenance.
All those are just nomenclature. As far as
budget of transition. Budget of transition. It's going to be transition.
Well, whether you call it budget of hope, budget of transition, budget of consolidation, and all that, it is all a question of nomenclature. What Nigerians are interested in is, how does this budget affect me? How does it bring food on my table? Because
the 133 million Nigerians that are said to be extremely poor, want to know
what is dimensional poverty.
What is in it for them?
What is in it is not only in poverty but multi-dimensional. Now, how do we make sure this is done? That is the question on every Nigerian lip now. Because, as I said earlier, budgets, speeches, signing or not signing is just the cycle that we pass through every year. How are we sure that this will be implemented? Now, some budgets that have been made for some ministries have been raised. The ministry is telling you they need 1 billion. You in the House of Rep think that they need 3. You give them 3. The extra 2 that they didn't budget for, where does it go? So these are issues that we need to, because if a man tells you that he needs 100 naira and you give him 400, is either he will now enlarge his appetite, or he will spend the 300 extra lavishly, or you have an intention of going back to say, oh boy, you asked for 1 and we gave you 4. Oh yeah, weigh my own. Which is part of what we hear goes on. But in the real sense of it, how do we ensure that this thing gets and percolates to the common man? Because the common man, Nigerians are suffering.
All right.
Look at
the common man all the way.
Look at everywhere. Whether it's at filling station, you are driving a car, a man sees you in the traffic and comes to you, Daddy, please, I have not eaten since morning.
Yes.
He doesn't know whether you yourself you have not even eaten. Whether the car you are driving, whether you are a driver,
I'm telling you,
and your guy sends you with the car. So we are all in it together. And the better for the those in authority to know that it is time for them to take a critical look at the implementation of this budget and not just make it a cycle of just...
If we don't do that, the impact definitely will feel it on the entire economy. There will be no progress, there will be no development, there will be no roads being constructed, there will be all the facilities that we need. Basic facilities will not be provided because that is where the monies will come from. The impact, we can go on and on if we want to keep listing what the impacts of bad budget implementation is for a country.
All right.